Alright guys, so for our typography project, we're going to talk about how we're going to color our background. So I have the color wheel, the exact one that we have in the classroom right here. So we're going to use this just to talk about what color combinations you can use. We're going to be working with analogous colors or else warm or cool colors. So analogous colors, in case you forgot, are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. It can be 3 to 5 colors next to each other. All right, so you may like to choose from like the reds to the oranges and maybe to yellow. I think 5 would be a good choice of colors to use. All right, try not to use the entire color wheel. So you can choose analogous colors like these. Okay. If you wanted, you can also choose from a different area. If you wanted to choose like over here, you can choose these analogous colors also. All right, it's just 3 to 5 colors in a row or next to each other on the color wheel. If you want to do warm or cool colors, you can do that as well. All right, so if you remember, what we did was we kind of split the color wheel. Sorry, I was on the wrong layer. We kind of split the color wheel and we said that this area over here, these were all warm colors, and then we went this way and we said on this side, these were all cool colors. All right, so you can use some warm colors or some cool colors also, which kind of are also analogous because they're next to each other. The red violet and the yellow green, since those ones were in the middle, we said they kind of can go either way, whichever way you wanted to place those. All right, so once you figure out what your color scheme is going to be, what you're going to do is you're going to go into your sketchbook app and you're going to open up your image that you drew. So we're going to be working right now with only the background layer. So what we can do is we can hit those little eyes on the side, and it's going to hide our layers of the letters. Because we don't need the letters for this, we only need the background. Now what you want to do is you want to go through this and you want to make sure that all of your areas are completely meeting. So if we look through mine carefully, okay, you could zoom in. Sorry. We could zoom in and we could check out. It looks like I have some areas in here, which I probably should have went through before. Like these areas here. And I would have to just go through and I'd have to make sure that any of these areas meet. All right, because we're going to be working with the paint bucket tool. So it's going to just fill in areas. All right, and I also saw, as I looked around, these ends over here. You're not really going to see those little fixes. It's easier to do this if you have your symmetrical bounding areas on there already. Now I think those areas will be okay. All right, so now that I have my area figured out, and now I want to use whichever complementary, or sorry, whatever analogous or warm and cool color combinations that I would like to. So we're going to be using this paint bucket tool. All right, so if you see at the very top of it, there is an area and it says tolerance. All right, so this has to do with how sensitive it will be to filling in inside of your boxes. So I told you guys to make your background in black for a reason. Because if you have it a color and then you're trying to fill it in another color, it might blend together and not look right. All right, so with our tolerance, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to choose a random color here. I'm going to choose red. Now, if I set my tolerance really high and I go to use my paint bucket tool and fill in my background, the whole thing turns red. All right, because this is not noticing those lines. It's not sensitive to them. So I want to move this down further. If you move it down further and you try to color in an area, it will just color in inside those lines. So if you try to do this and you see right away that your whole area or too much of the area is being filled in, that's what your problem is. All right, so now I'm going to back up right there. All right, so now we have, once you hit that little circle over there, we have our whole color wheel. All right, now we're using analogous colors, but if you'd like to also play around with tints and shades within that, that's perfectly fine, and you can. So this shows you, or this helps you choose whatever color you want to, but then if you look at this area, this plays with the tints and shades. You can also, I'm right now in that little diamond in the center that's moving around like crazy. You can also play around with that at the bottom part over here. I'm moving that L bar back and forth because it's going from the lightest to the darkest and back and forth. So it's up to you what you want to do with that. All right, you can also go with any one of these things down here. All right, so I'm going to start off with yellow. I'm going to start with some bright yellow, and you can form patterns, or you don't have to necessarily form patterns. Like over here, if I'm making this one yellow, oops, see, so since those both filled in, then that means there's an area that I need to clarify. So I'm going to go back to that pen, and I'm going to go back to black. And there's an area right over here. So what I want to do is I just want to go through, make sure it's nowhere else. And you can pretty easily follow those areas because everything is completely symmetrical. All right, so I'm back. I'm going back to the paint bucket tool. I'm going to choose that yellow color again. So I did every other one. Mine worked out that way. You may not, depending on how many lines you had to separate, because you could have separated with odd or even numbers. All right, now for my other area that I might want to use a lighter yellow. Right, and then now I'm purposely putting the orange right here because I'm putting the bright orange next to the lighter yellow, so they kind of look a little bit different. So you have the values that can make each other stand out because you have light against dark. It's creating contrast. You want to try and create some contrast as you create your artwork. All right, so if I wanted to reuse a color again, I could do that. Or I could change it slightly. Now you just want to make sure that as you're going around, everything is the same. So if you notice wherever I put one orange, like spoke coming out, the other ones were the same way. All right, and I'm kind of keeping with a pattern for this, in case you didn't notice. I'm doing lights and darks as I go all the way around. And I accidentally forgot to color in this one area next to this. So if you notice with this, see this little eyedropper tool? That's like a color picker tool. So if I wanted to reuse any color that I already used, I would just move this and then I could find it again. So like I might want inside this middle here, maybe I want to go back and I want to use this color there, then I found it easily. All right, like maybe I want to use this light yellow again in here for every other one. And then maybe I want to use this bright yellow here. All right, so it's important when you're creating a color scheme to make sure that you're really thinking about where you're putting your colors. Oops. So that they all work together. A good way to do that is by repeating. And if you're noticing, I'm using the color picker tool a lot to repeat colors as I keep working. I didn't mean to do that. Oops. So the reason that I chose that new color in between those two is because as those two areas overlapped, I decided to choose a color that was in the color scheme of something that they would make. All right, so now I have my design figured out. So now what I would go back and if my word's on top of it. Now I feel like the background is kind of bright and it kind of takes away from my letters and you can't see them as much. So what you're going to then do is you're going to go back onto this, and what you can do is you can adjust your background and you could just make it a little bit lighter so it fades a little bit if you feel like it's fighting the foreground. All right, because you want your design to really be front and center. So that's something you could do. You could also play around with the opacity if you wanted to. The opacity is what makes it more like see-through. So that would also kind of lighten it. All right, and then once you're done, this is what you're going to be submitting as your final project grade for this assignment. Thank you.